The sun burned high over the red dust of Kibuye village, where time seemed to move slower than the rest of the world. In a small mud-brick house with a rusted tin roof, 17-year-old Aken sat on the floor, fingers gently pressed to the woven mat beneath her. She couldn't see the mat, or the cracked walls around her, or the chickens pecking outside the doorway. Aken had been blind since the age of 6, when a fever had taken her sight and left her world in darkness. But even without eyes, she had learned to feel things more deeply than others, the sadness in her mother's silence, the tension in the air, the footsteps of strangers when they came with whispered voices and thick envelopes. That morning had been quieter than usual. Her mother, Mama Niale, hadn't said a word during breakfast. The porridge was thin, almost water, and the silence was heavier than usual. Aken could hear her mother's breathing, tight, nervous, and the way she shuffled her feet without. Moving far, then came the knock, 3 sharp knocks on the wooden door. Not the neighbor's knock, not a friendly knock. Mama Niale hesitated. Then she opened the door. A deep male voice followed, smooth, polished. Not from the village. "You said she was ready," the man said, his voice low and controlled. She is, but she doesn't know yet," Mama Niale replied, her voice trembling. Aken sat up straighter. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Mama? Who's that?" There was a long silence. Mama Niale stepped inside, and Aken could feel the weight of her presence and then something else, guilt. "My daughter," Mama began, kneeling beside her. "You remember how I told you God always makes a way, even in hard times?" Aken nodded slowly, her heart beginning to race. "Well, he made a way for you, for us. You are going to a better place. You'll be taken care of, finally." Aken's hands gripped the mat beneath her. "What do you mean? What better place?" Mama Niale's voice cracked. "A wealthy man. A very wealthy man. He wants to marry you. He's from the city, he's powerful, kind. He can give you the life I never could." Aken felt the words hit her like cold water. "Marry me? But I've never met him. I can't even see him." "You don't need to, he wants you, and he's already paid." "Paid?" Aken's voice shook. "You sold me." The silence was answer enough. The man stepped closer. Aken turned her face toward his direction, but there was only darkness. She didn't need eyes to feel the cold in his voice. "You'll be well taken care of," he said. "Your mother will have enough to eat. You'll live in a mansion. You'll have everything you ever dreamed of." "I didn't dream of being sold," she whispered. Her mother sobbed quietly. "Please, my child, I had no choice. We were starving. The roof leaks, the doctor never comes, your siblings, they need food, school." He offered a better life for you, but Aken knew better. This wasn't for her. It was survival, but not hers. She was just the price paid. Still, what could she do? Where could a blind girl go in a world that already treated her like a burden? That evening, she was dressed, in a long kitenge dress she had never worn before. Her hair was plaited neatly and her hands were shaking. The man didn't speak much on the way. His name was Mr. Luanda, she learned. A billionaire from the capital, known for his silence, his business empire, and his temper. When they reached the car, sleek, air-conditioned, too clean, she sat in the leather seat and felt the village fade behind her. Her heart was heavy, her throat dry. She was going to be a wife. But not by love, not by choice. And as the engine roared and the car sped away from her childhood home, Aken wondered, what kind of man buys a blind girl as a wife? And what kind of life waited for her behind the golden gates of a billionaire's mansion? The journey to the city felt longer than it was. Maybe it was the silence or the weight in her chest, or the way Aken couldn't stop thinking about her mother's tears, or her own. She hadn't cried in front of them, not in front of Mama, not in front of the man, but inside she was breaking. The roads changed, from dirt to tar, from bumpy to smooth. The smells in the air changed too. Less smoke, more fuel, more cement. She didn't know what the city looked like, but she could feel the difference. Cars moved fast, horns honked, people talked loudly, but no one stopped to listen. Mr. Luanda said nothing the whole ride. Finally, the car stopped. She heard heavy. Gates open, then close behind them. The driver stepped out first. Then a woman's voice came, firm, older. "Bring her inside. Madam is expecting her." "Madam?" Aiken's heart sank. There was another woman already. She was helped out of the car. Her feet touched tiled ground, cold, smooth, polished. She felt like she'd stepped into another world. As she was led inside, the air turned cooler. The house smelled of perfume and expensive things she couldn't name. The walls echoed. Everything felt big, too big. "She can stay in the guest wing for now," the woman's voice said again. "Mr. Luanda will speak with her later, and Just like that, Aken was alone in a room that smelled like roses and money. She sat on the edge of a soft bed, hands folded in her lap. She didn't touch anything else. She didn't want to. She didn't belong there. Later that evening, footsteps approached. Then the voice she now recognized. "Mr. Luanda, are you comfortable?" Aken turned her head toward him. "Comfortable? You mean in the house I was brought into?" There was a pause. "I don't want you to think of it like that." "Then what should I think of it as?" she asked softly, trying not to sound broken. "I'm blind. I'm 17. I've never seen your face. I've never known your name until this morning. And now I'm in your house dressed like someone's doll with no idea what comes next." He stepped further into the room. His voice was lower now. "My name is Elijah Luanda. I have many businesses. I'm respected. But I've never been understood. People see the money, not the man." "And I'm supposed to understand you just because you paid for me?" she asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "You'll have your own room. You'll not be forced into anything. Not until you are ready, if ever. I don't force women, Aiken." I didn't know if she believed that, but she nodded once. Her throat was tight. "You were chosen," he added, "because I wanted someone quiet. Someone who wouldn't come for money. Someone with innocence." She felt that word like an insult. "So you bought a blind girl," she said, her voice shaking. Elijah sighed. "You'll learn to like it here. I don't expect love. Just peace and honesty." He left after that, leaving her in the cold silence. But the silence didn't stay long. The next morning, another woman entered. She introduced herself as Lydia, the housekeeper. Her voice was sharp and bitter. "You may have come in through the front gate, girl," she hissed, "but don't think you're anything more than what you are. He brings girls. You're not the first." Aken turned her face toward the woman's voice. "Then why stay if it's so dirty here?" Lydia didn't answer, just walked out, heels clicking angrily. So Aken sat, listening to the silence. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just waited. What was her place here? Was she really a wife? Or just something bought and hidden? But deep inside, something stirred. A quiet defiance. A voice that said, "You're not just someone's property." Maybe she was blind. Maybe she was poor. But she still had her voice. Her mind, her dignity. And she would not let this house take that from her. Days passed, but they felt like years. The mansion was big, quiet and cold. Aken didn't know how it looked, but she imagined it was the kind of place where everything was expensive and lifeless, like a cage with golden bars. She was given new clothes, food she had never tasted before, and a soft bed that didn't creak like the one back home. But none of it brought her peace. No one really spoke to her except Lydia, and even then it was only instructions. "Breakfast is at 8. Don't touch the piano. Stay in your wing, and always don't ask questions." She wasn't allowed near Elijah's office. She could hear voices sometimes, men in suits talking business. She could smell cigars and cologne, feel the air change when he walked past. He barely said a word to her after that first night, just a polite "good morning" or "I hope you're adjusting," but she wasn't adjusting. Aiken felt invisible, and that was the strangest thing. Even though she had no sight, it was now the people with eyes who couldn't see her. One afternoon, as she sat outside in the backyard under the shade of a mango tree, her fingers gently tracing the lines of the bark, a voice surprised her. "You like sitting here?" It was a young voice, a boy. Aiken turned her head. "Who are you?" "I'm Noah," he said proudly. "I'm 9. My mom works here. I'm not supposed to talk to you." "So why are you?" she asked, smiling faintly. "Because you look sad. And I don't like when people look sad." She laughed softly. That's kind of you. Are you Mr. Luanda's wife? Aiken paused. I don't know what I am. Noah sat beside her. My mom says he's scary, that he's powerful, but I think he's just lonely. Lonely? Aiken repeated. Noah nodded. He eats alone. He works alone. He yells sometimes when he thinks no one hears. My mum says rich people are loud when they're hurting. Aiken thought about that. Maybe Noah was right. That night, Elijah came into the dining room while she was having supper alone. For once, he didn't just pass by. He sat down across from her. You like the food? It's nice, she said, still chewing slowly. He cleared his throat. You haven't asked for anything since you came. Should I? She asked. He sighed. You have the right. Clothes, books, a piano instructor, a guide, anything. I'd like a clock, she said quietly. Elijah looked confused. A clock? Yes, she nodded. One that ticks loud, so I can feel the time. There was silence. Then he chuckled, a sound she hadn't expected from him. Soft, almost real. Done, he said. And maybe, she added, you could tell me something true, about you. He didn't reply for a while, then finally said, I never wanted to marry. Not really. My father believed in power. He thought a man should never be soft. So I became hard. I built empires, but I lost people. Good people. Like love? Aiken asked softly. He looked at her. She couldn't see his eyes, but she felt his gaze. Maybe, he replied. Or, maybe I never knew how to love at all. Aiken nodded. I don't know what love looks like either, but I know how it feels. And how does it feel? He asked. Like not being afraid. He didn't say anything, just stood and left. But something changed after that night. The next morning, Lydia brought her a small wooden clock. It ticked loudly, comforting, real. And over the next few days, Elijah stayed longer when he passed by. Sometimes he'd sit, sometimes they talked. Slowly, he started asking questions too, about her village, her dreams, how she used to listen. To the radio with her siblings even though she couldn't see the images. He even laughed once when she told him how she once tried to milk a goat and got kicked in the stomach. It was small, but it was something. Still, one thing never left her. Mind. Why had he really chosen her? And what secret was he still hiding behind his silence? Because even though his tone had softened and his visits became more frequent, Aiken could feel it, like a locked door inside him, something dark that hadn't been spoken yet. And deep down, she feared that when that door opened, it might change everything. Weeks turned into a month, and though Aiken's body lived in a mansion, her heart was still figuring out if it had a home. She started to know the house by touch, the hallways, the distance from her room to the mango tree, the faint squeak of the third step on the back staircase. She memorized the sounds, the smells, the air. Sometimes Elijah would surprise her with books written in Braille. Other times he'd just sit quietly near her, saying nothing. They weren't lovers. They weren't friends. They were two people, stuck between silence and something that almost felt like peace. But one night shattered that. It was late. The house was quiet. Aiken couldn't sleep. She had started hearing whispers, not in her head but real voices, distant ones, arguing. A woman and Elijah. The words weren't clear, but the tone was sharp, heated, angry. She sat at the edge of her bed, listening closely. Footsteps stormed past her door, and then a door slammed shut down the hall. The next morning the silence returned, but heavier. At breakfast, Lydia dropped the plate in front of her harder than usual. Aiken flinched. Is everything all right? Lydia scoffed. Ask your husband. Elijah? He's not who you think, Lydia hissed, then quickly walked away. Later that afternoon, Aiken sat outside trying to think, trying not to spiral. She wasn't used to being this confused, this helpless, but her ears were her gift. And that night, they had caught something. Footsteps approached. She knew them instantly. Elijah, she said. He sat beside her. You heard, didn't you? He asked, his voice low. Yes. A long pause. Then he spoke. Her name is Rebecca. She was supposed to be my wife. Long ago. Before all of this. Before you. Arkan swallowed hard. She left me, he said. Said I was too cold, too focused on money, that I didn't know how to love. And now she's back? She's back. Because of you. Arkan turned her face toward him. Me? She thinks I brought you here to make her jealous, to punish her. She believes I bought you to show I can control someone, since I couldn't control her. Arkan's heart ached. Is that true? No, Elijah said quickly. No. But I'm guilty of something else. What? He exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that carried 1,000 unspoken truths. I wanted someone who couldn't leave. The words sat heavy in the air. Aiken felt her stomach twist. I wanted silence. I wanted peace. Not a fight. Not judgment. Just someone who wouldn't walk away. She blinked slowly. So you chose someone blind, poor, desperate. He didn't deny it. She stood up, her legs shaking. You thought I couldn't run. Elijah stood too. I never planned to fall into this. You're different, Akin. You listen. You don't expect anything from me. That scared me at first, and now I think it's the only thing keeping me sane. Tears welled up in her eyes, even if they couldn't help her see. Elijah, she whispered, I may be blind, but I see more than you. Think. He stepped closer. You don't own me, she said, and you don't get to decide who I am just because you paid. I know, he said softly. And I'm sorry. She took a step back. Then let me choose. Let me stay. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Elijah nodded. Then stay, and I'll earn it. Akin turned and walked away, heart pounding. That night, she didn't cry. But she also didn't sleep, because now she knew the truth. She wasn't just a girl bought by a rich man, she was the mirror he didn't expect, the one that showed him everything he didn't want to see. And if he truly wanted her to stay, he'd have to prove he deserved someone like her. The next morning brought a shift. Aishan woke up before the house stirred, her fingers gently tracing the ticking clock beside her bed. She didn't know what time it was exactly, but the rhythm had become her comfort. Her way of marking how far she'd come. Elijah didn't speak to her that day. She didn't seek him either. Not out of pride, but because silence was needed. For both of them. But something changed around the house. Lydia's usual bitterness softened. She still wasn't warm, but her tone lost its edge. When she brought Akin's tea that afternoon, she lingered. I didn't think you'd last this long, Lydia said. Akin turned toward her voice. Why? Most girls don't. Some run. Some beg to be sent back. You... Lydia paused. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? A quiet, helpless girl who'd be broken in a week. Akin didn't smile. Maybe I was, for a while. But broken doesn't mean gone. Lydia didn't reply, just walked away. Later, that evening, Elijah came to her room. He didn't ask to enter. He just stood at the door as if waiting for permission without saying it. You can come in, Akin said gently. He stepped inside. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, he said. Not yet. I just want to explain something. She nodded. My father owned everything in his path, land, people, respect, but he never understood love. He made me believe it was weakness, that emotions were distractions. So I became cold, calculated, and I lost people because of that. Like Rebecca, Akin said softly. He nodded. And others. I thought if I chose someone who couldn't walk away easily, I wouldn't be abandoned again. Akin took a breath. I'm not here because I can't walk away, Elijah. I'm here because I haven't yet. He looked at her silent. She continued. You talk about control, power, loneliness. But you forget something. I'm still human. I may be blind, poor, young, but I have my own soul, my own dignity. I know, he said. And I want to give you something back. She turned her head slightly. What? Choice. He stepped closer and placed something in her hand. A small key. What is this? She asked. It's to the front gate. You can leave if you want. No guards will stop you. I'll make sure of it. Aishan held the key gently, her fingers shaking. I didn't bring you here the right way, Elijah added, but I want to keep you the right way. Not as a wife who was bought, but as a woman who chooses. Tears stung her eyes. Not because she wanted to leave, but because someone was finally giving her power in a place where she'd had none. She didn't say anything, just nodded. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, the key still in her hand. Her mind raced. What would she do? She could walk, find her way to a center, a village, maybe even home. But what was home now? Her mother had sold her. Her village had forgotten her. Here in this cold mansion, she'd found something different. Not comfort, not love, not yet, but truth. And space. And slowly, a voice of her own. The next morning, as the sun rose, Aachen stood at the front gate, key in hand. Lydia saw her from the window and froze. Elijah watched silently from the second floor, but Aachen didn't leave. She held the key up, then turned around and walked back into the house, not as someone who was trapped, but as someone who could walk away, and chose not to. When Aachen walked back into the house, no one said anything. Not Lydia, not the staff, not Elijah. But something in the air changed, like the whole house was holding its breath, waiting for what would happen next. Elijah met her later that evening, in the sitting room. She was sitting by the open window, listening to the rustling of the jacaranda tree outside. The soft purple petals had begun to fall, and even though she couldn't see them, she could smell the sweetness in the breeze. "I thought you might leave," he said gently. "I thought about it," she replied, "but I didn't." "Why?" She turned toward his voice. "Because for the first time, I was allowed to decide. That matters to someone like me." He didn't speak. She heard him sit across from her. "Do you think I made the wrong choice?" she asked. "No," Elijah said. "I think you made a powerful one." A soft silence followed. "I want to do something for you," he said suddenly. "Something you've never had." Aachen tilted her head. "Like what?" "I spoke to a specialist," he said slowly. "There's a doctor in Johannesburg. He works with patients who've lost their sight from childhood illness. There's a chance, not a promise, but a chance, that you could see again." Aachen's hands froze on her lap. Her breath caught in her throat. "See?" she whispered. "Yes, not today, not tomorrow. But with time, treatment, and if you want it, maybe." She didn't answer right away. Her thoughts were spinning. She had lived in darkness for so long. It had become normal, familiar, part of her. The idea of sight, real sight, felt unreal, terrifying even. "Elijah, you don't have to decide now, or ever. I'm not doing it to fix you." "You don't need fixing," he said, "but I want you to have the option, because that's what you never had before." Tears ran down her cheeks. Silent. Warm. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not for the treatment, for seeing me." He moved. Closer but didn't touch her. He had learned that much. She didn't like being touched unless she reached first. "You're strong, Aachen," he said. "Stronger than anyone I've ever met." She smiled faintly. "Even stronger than a billionaire." He chuckled. "By far." Days passed. Things softened. Not just between them, but inside the house. Lydia began treating her with gentleness, even offering to teach her how to bake one afternoon. Elijah stopped disappearing into his office so often. Sometimes they would sit for hours just talking, about life, about childhood, about everything and nothing. Then one day, a letter arrived. From her mother. Aachen held the envelope in her, hands the paper trembling slightly. Lydia offered to read it and Aachen nodded. "My dear daughter," the letter began, "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I must say this. I was wrong. I thought I was saving you. I thought giving you to a rich man would mean a better life. But I didn't ask you. I didn't trust you. And that is a sin I carry. Every day I miss you, your laughter, your quiet strength. If you can ever find it in your heart to come home, my arms are open." Aachen didn't cry. She just sat with the letter in her lap, silent. Later that night, Elijah found her by the mango tree. "Will you go see her?" he asked. "I think so," she said quietly. "She made a mistake. But she's still my mother." nodded. I can arrange everything. You can take time, as much as you need. She turned to him. Will you wait for me? Elijah didn't hesitate. As long as it takes. And for the first time since the day she was taken from her village, Akin felt something rise in her chest that had been missing for a long, long time. Not love, not yet, but freedom. The journey back to Kibuye was quieter than Akin expected. The car felt different this time, not like a cage, but like a bridge. A return, not an escape. Elijah had wanted to come along, but she gently asked him not to. She needed to do this on her own. He understood. Lydia packed her bags with care, even sneaking in her favorite biscuits. You're not just a visitor there anymore, she'd said. You're going back as your own woman. The car dropped her at the edge of the village. She stepped out, cane in hand, wind brushing against her cheek. The ground felt familiar beneath her feet, uneven, dusty, warm. Voices whispered around her as she passed. Curious children, old neighbors, women who once watched her carry water down the same path now stood silent, unsure what to say. The blind girl who had been sold was back, but different, dressed well, standing tall, confident even in darkness. When she reached the front of her mother's house, she stood for a moment without knocking. Then the door creaked open. Mama Nayali stood there, thinner than before. Her voice cracked like dry leaves. My daughter. Akin stepped forward and gently embraced her. Neither spoke for a long while, just the sound of two broken hearts finding each other again. Inside, the house was still the same, cracked. Walls, the smell of old wood smoke, the sound of the goats in the back. They sat on mats on the floor like old times. Mama Nial placed a bowl of millet porridge in front of her, hands trembling. I thought I'd never see you again, she said softly. I thought the same, Akin replied. Her mother reached for her hand. What I did, it wasn't right, but I was afraid. The world doesn't leave space for poor blind girls. I thought you'd be safer in gold than in dust. But no one asked if I wanted gold, Akin whispered, or if dust was where I felt whole. Her mother wept, quietly, head bowed. I forgive you, Akin said, but I need you to promise something. Anything. Don't ever sell another daughter to survive. I won't, her mother said, voice trembling. Never. That night they lay side by side under the stars, just like when Akin was a child. She listened to the sound of crickets, to the distant singing of youth at a nearby fire. Her village hadn't changed much, but she had. The next few days passed in healing. Neighbors visited. Some apologized, some didn't. But she no longer cared what they thought. She wasn't a story whispered at the market anymore. She was a woman with power in her voice. She spoke to young girls at the community hall, told them they mattered, no matter their background or their abilities. She told them love was not something to be bought or sold, and dignity, that was theirs to protect. One afternoon, her little brother held her hand and asked, Is it true you're married to a man with cars bigger than our house? She laughed. It's true, but what matters more is that he listens. And you love him? Ashen paused. I don't know yet, she admitted. But he gave me the choice, and maybe that's how love starts. When it was time to leave, her mother packed her food, hugged her tightly and said, This time I let you go with pride, not guilt. Back at the mansion, Elijah was waiting by the entrance. She could feel it, the quiet tension of a man who had missed her. She stepped out of the car and said, I'm home, he smiled. You are. They walked side by side into the house, not as strangers, not as buyer and bride, but as two people starting over, not perfect, not healed entirely, but free. The weeks after her return were gentler. There was no big celebration, no dramatic reunion, just small moments, morning tea shared quietly, the sound of Elijah reading to her in the evenings, Lydia smiling more often, and even sitting down to chat while peeling mangoes. Akin had started smiling again too, not the polite one she wore to survive, but the soft, real kind that grew from something inside, a kind of peace she had never felt before. One morning Elijah brought her something wrapped in soft cloth. It's nothing fancy, he said, but I thought of you. She unwrapped it slowly. Her hands felt it first, smooth, curved wood, keys beneath her fingers. "A hand-carved kalimba," he said. "It's a thumb piano. I saw it and thought maybe you'd like to learn." Her fingers trembled. She didn't know much about music, but she knew sound, and this was a gift made not for beauty or price, but for her. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, a soft breath leaving his lips. "And one more thing," he said. "I've arranged the first appointment with the eye specialist. He's ready when you are." Akin held the instrument tightly. "I've thought about it a lot," she said. "About seeing again." "And?" he asked gently. "I'm not afraid of being blind, but I think maybe I'm ready to see what the world looks like, not for the world's sake, but for mine. Then we go when you're ready," he said. She nodded, her heart full but calm. That evening they sat in the garden as the wind moved through the trees. Elijah sat beside her, silent, respectful, but close. She turned to him and reached for his hand the first time she had ever done that willingly. He froze slightly, surprised. "You once said you didn't want love," she said softly. "That you didn't know how." "I remember," he said. "I didn't either," she continued. "But maybe it's not something we know. Maybe it's something we grow." Elijah's hand squeezed hers gently. "I never deserved you, Akin," he said. "Maybe not," she said. "But now you're trying, and that's worth something." In the months that followed, Akin started learning music, hosting small gatherings for girls from underprivileged backgrounds, even arranging for an education fund in her village. Elijah funded it, but never took credit. He said she inspired it. She said she just refused to be silent. The day of her surgery came. Elijah was by her side at every step. As she lay on the bed, blindfolded after the operation, she whispered, "I'm scared." "Then we'll be scared together," he said. When the bandages came off, the first thing she saw was blurred, light, then shape, then finally the face of a man who once bought her, and now looked at her like she was a miracle. Her voice broke when she said, "So that's you." He smiled, eyes wet. "That's me." And she smiled too, because this wasn't just a story of a blind girl sold to a billionaire. It was the story of a girl who was silenced and learned to speak, a girl who was used but refused to be broken, a girl who was chosen and chose herself first. And when she finally saw the world, she saw it on her own terms, not with fear, not with anger, but with strength, dignity, and the quiet, steady power of love that grew from truth. Not love that was bought, but love that was earned.